Good evening, mates. I'm Steve, and this is my rock and metal life. Some people would call it a tragedy. I strenuously disagree. What I'm here to talk about tonight is a record that people really don't seem to like, talk bad about, put it like way down on the list of this monumental band's rankings, but I have had a recent awakening with this record, and I didn't really hate it so much to start with, but I think this is pretty solid, and it's only the high standard of this band, Judas Priest, that their Ram It Down record is much maligned, and it's definitely got some warts. I'm going to go over those, but this came out during one of those odd periods for me. It's a 1988 release. May of 1988 is when it came out. For me, it looked like this. This is what I purchased at the warehouse or some such outlet down in San Diego. But because I was in the military and because I went on these overseas deployments, I kind of have these blind spots in these big areas, like where we went away. And back then, the 1980s, no cell phones. We got mail once every 2 or 3 weeks. Barely knew what was going on when the ship that I was attached to was deployed overseas. And this is one of those ones that I don't remember the exact timeline, but I remember, oh, Judas Priest has a new record. I don't know how long it had been out. I knew the Johnny B. Good angle. So anyway, I picked it up, and I remember playing it at the time. And probably one of my only real clear memories of enjoying the record was I was in my berthing on the ship that I was attached to, and we were sitting there watching TV, and next to us there was some stairs, and it was during the day, we're supposed to be working, but of course I'm sitting around watching the TV, hoping nobody comes down the stairs, and there was a guy from the place below us. He came down the stairs, and he's on our floor, and right at that time I had hit play on the cassette player because I wanted to hear my new Judas Priest cassette. And when Halford lets out the scream at the beginning of the first song, the guy almost fell down the stairs, and he grabbed himself. He's like, whoa, what's going on? I said, no, it's just music, and the song starts up, and he just shakes his head, and he goes on down. But anyway, so as you can see, I'm wearing my Halford shirt. Also, through this process, I uncovered a disturbing fact. I have a shocking dearth of Judas Priest shirts. I've got a British Steel shirt, and then I got my Redeemer of Souls shirt. And I actually have, that's it for Judas Priest. I have a couple of Halford shirts, but we have to do something about that. Gonna have to do some, 40th anniversary stuff or something. I don't know. So anyway, here we go talking about Ram It Down. It came out after Turbo, and as I think a lot of people know, Judas Priest was doing platinum stuff, double platinum with Screaming for Vengeance, platinum with Defenders, and then Turbo came out in '86, and a little tweak to the sound, the guitar synths, the lead song Turbo, different feel, futuristic, whatever you want to call it. They were doing great on the road. Their concerts are fantastic, but they maybe lost a little something. And I'm going to talk about that in a bit here. But, it's like it didn't really sound like the metal gods of Defenders and all that to some people. And I don't know that that's fair. I think a lot of that goes on the single and the video for Turbo. But be that as it may, when they go to come out with this record, what actually happened with Turbo was supposed to be 2 records, and it was supposed to be called Twin Turbos, and one of them was going to be really heavy, and one of them was going to be the guitar synth stuff, I believe. I think that's how it worked out. The record company talked them down and said, no, don't do that. And so they put out Turbo, and then they had some songs left over from that went on to Ram It Down, and those songs were Ram It Down, Hard as Iron, Love You to Death, and Monsters of Rock. And so away we go. Now, I have some insight from a couple of books that I think if you like Judas Priest, you really should read. Heavy Duty is K.K. Downing's memoir that came out first, and then Confess is Rob Halford's memoir, which came out afterwards. And I'm sure if you're paying any attention to this at all, you know that Ken upset a lot of people with his book, and he pretty much came at Glenn Tipton, and he didn't like the way the band was being run. Halford, in his book, kind of tries to go down the middle. Halford commiserates with everyone. He feels bad for Dave Holland. He feels bad for KK, so on and so forth. He's being pretty diplomatic there. But in the Heavy Duty book, on pages 183 to 189, he goes over Ram It Down. And he stated that they had pretty much taken the fans on this weird ride. Okay, they had Point of Entry. Then they had Screaming for Vengeance. Then they went, heavy with Defenders. Then they came at him with Turbo. And he said, what we got to do here is we got to stabilize this whole thing. We got to make a straight up, metal record. And KK or Ken, he's obviously one of the, he has a lot of input into the music. Glenn Tipton, I think, was probably the boss all those years, which led to the riff that we have today. So the record comes out, and the other storyline we got going along with this is Johnny Be Good. And here's the story on that, just real briefly. The band was approached with Top Gun with an offer to what was going to happen was the song Reckless from Turbo was going to be on Top Gun. And management in the band said, oh, no, we don't want to be attached to some, love story movie, blah, blah, blah. Huge mistake, all right? So they wanted to learn from that when they were approached with another movie soundtrack, which turned out to be Johnny Be Good, which not on the level of Top Gun as far as success and all that. And so the song Johnny Be Good, Priest is going to do another cover. They've done a million of them. Johnny Be Good itself kind of doesn't really sound like the original, Green Men Alicia say. You hear the Peter Green Fleetwood Mac, you hear it speeded up and heavier and all that. But, Johnny Be Good, it's there it is. It's around the framework of the Johnny Be Good song. It's the same lyrics, but probably not one of their success stories as far as their remakes. And so you've got all that, and that song is going to be on this record, and then these other 4 songs. So then, let's fill out the whole roster here. I'm just going to go song by song. For myself personally, Ram It Down is killer. I mean, just absolutely killer. And I'm going to say right now, man, like 1 through 4 for sure. 1 through 5, 1 through 6. I think 1 through 6 we're smoking, Point of Entry. This is I probably put this with British Steel, which maybe I should just rank them all, because my ranking of British Steel probably isn't what everybody else's is. But number 1's Ram It Down, number 2's Heavy Metal, number 3 is Love Zone. That 1, 2, 3 right there, I don't know how you can do any better in 1988. It sounds brilliant right now. Ram It Down, pretty, Defenders of the Faith sounding, and maybe Painkiller, the up-tempo stuff. Heavy Metal, I just dig that song. It's the perfect tempo, the huge sound. The one thing that I forgot to mention this, the other factor going into this is they used the drum machine, and pissed off Dave Holland, and Dave Holland ended up being grumpy the whole tour, and he quit at the end of the tour. And so, Heavy Metal is probably a song where a real drummer would have, changed that a little bit. But I think it still comes out just fantastic. And then Love Zone, okay. Whatever the subject matter is, who cares? This song sounds really good. Nice heavy song, but a little, we're going to get to another theme that Ken said in his book. He said this record wasn't sinister like he wanted it to be. There was upbeat songs. There were great songs, but they were upbeat, and he wanted to get, a little darker and heavier, and that's not really what we got. So you got Love Zone, and then Come and Get It, maybe in that same vein. hard as iron, you know, a little anthemic thing. But again, I love those songs. They're great. Where do I put them compared to, you know, Screaming for Vengeance? I don't know. Hard to say. But this is a good record, you know. And if you're, I remember the day I turned around on this. I got on the treadmill and I put this on. I had my headphones on and I started with Ram It Down, and I was like, oh man, oh I've been missing something here. It had been years since I played this, and I saw a comment on when I was reading up to get ready for this, and I saw a review of the record, and one of the comments was, a guy said, you know, whenever I'm driving, you know, a long drive, this is killer, and I would agree with that. So then you got Blood Red Skies, which is the one song that I think probably stands up for whatever reason. This is the song that the band plays. I know on the Epitaph tour, they made sure they played songs from each record, and Blood Red Skies was the one from here. And I believe they're still playing it live, and it comes across good live. It's a good song. It's you know, it's that slow down, you know, kind of out in the cold thing. Really good song. And then I'm a Rocker, which I like the music on this one. I think musically this is fantastic. I think the words are stupid, and that surprisingly for me. I don't, you know, this whole thing that I'm doing here is all about how much I love metal and I want to wave the flag and tell everybody. I kind of don't like songs about that. I kind of don't like that where that's the subject matter. Heavy metal, you know, perfect. You know, it's kind of disguised different. It's like, you know, I would say like maybe Def Leppard's Rock Brigade, which is, you know, we're coming, we're gonna kick your ass because we're such a great, you know, we're so heavy and hard rock and all that. And I like that one. I like this heavy metal. I don't know. I guess maybe the lyrics has something to do with it or how it sounds. I don't know. But I'm a Rocker is a great song musically. You know, I think maybe they could have did better with the words. Johnny Be Good. You know, honestly, I like it. I totally get the hatred that's out there for it, and it does seem to be like a, you know, a curveball out of left field. That whole thing with the movie, you know, who knew? And, you know, Top Gun, you know, I honestly, all these years later, I wouldn't want to be associated with that original Top Gun movie. I know it's successful and everybody talks about it like it's, you know, Casablanca. It's not. It's really, it's probably the poster child for 80s crap romance. You know, the hero can do anything nonsense, but that doesn't mean you wouldn't want your song on that soundtrack. And they one of these two books, I can't remember, I think it was Halford in his Confess book, from 228 to 232 is when he talks about Ram It Down. And one of these two, it mentions that when they went and saw the movie, they couldn't believe how it had been, you know, it was barely in there. It was just a few seconds. You know, well, that might have worked out for the best, but that movie was a huge bomb. And so then we go to Love You to Death. You know, that's a good song. Lyrics maybe not up to par in my view, continuing down that theme. But then you finish with Monsters of Rock, and, you know, I think that might be the dumbest, you know, lyric thing on here. I don't care about that, you know, the imagery and everything and what we're doing here. But again, really good music, really good heavy stuff. So you got heavy stuff on here, and you got the upbeat stuff that Ken didn't like, and you throw in the fact that the lead single was Johnny Be Good, and the movie tanked. Kind of a recipe for disaster after Turbo. I actually think if this came out after Defenders, I think it might have been more well received. And I'm curious what other people would think of that, because Turbo, man, it was, you know, I mean, I was there and people were like, what are they doing? What is that? You know, we thought this was the two guitar, you know, symbol of metal, you know, and if you don't remember, heavy metal it got that big, just the term itself, it got that big visibility from like the Quiet Riot and Twisted Sister, the goofy videos on MTV that, you know, made bands instantly overnight, made them huge, you know, and heavy metal is this, you know, it's not this bad thing, it's this cool thing. It's like almost family, you know, family oriented stuff. And man, almost right away, most of the bands would say, well, we're not a heavy metal band, you know, that's not what we are. We consider ourselves, you know, more of a rock band. We're just rock and roll. That I heard that, you know, from every one of those bands at that time. Priest did not do that. Priest, you know, they're the icons of heavy metal, and if you saw them live, Halford was forever saying, you know, look at all these heavy metal maniacs out here. You know, did you guys come here tonight to hear some heavy metal? And so they embraced it. And then when you throw in the guitar synths and the you know, however you would describe Turbo, you know, it's almost like when your favorite, you know, rock guitar band, you know, and they start doing keyboards. Oh, it's over now, you know. That was kind of, I heard a lot of that, and I remember I didn't really like Turbo, the song, or Turbo Lover. I keep saying Turbo. It's Turbo Lover. I didn't really like it like I did, you know, Grinder and, you know, Love Bites and stuff like that. You know, I have my favorite Priest songs. It wasn't one of those, but I didn't hate it, and I thought it was well done. You know, I thought, okay, well, if they're going to go this route, you know, that's pretty cool. And I like the build up, and I like, you know, Halford's voice. You know, it's all, you know, who cares what it's about. It could be, you know, about, you know, an army coming and, you know, taking over a place. It could be whatever, but, you know, I'm your Turbo Lover. Nah, okay. So I think Turbo, like, turned the tide for the band, and then when they came back with this, I think Johnny B. Good, you know, it's almost like the fans only see like 1, 2. They say, oh, okay, they came out with Turbo, you know, now what are they doing this year? Oh, now it's Johnny B. Good. What happened to those guys? Well, if you listen to the Turbo record, and if you listen to this whole record, you know, the band's doing okay. If you read these books, they talk about how they got sent way out to the middle of the nowhere, you know, someplace in Denmark, like nothing anywhere nearby, because they didn't want the band to get distracted, because they thought Turbo was a letdown, and, you know, the songwriting and the music wasn't up to par, so they wanted these guys to just lock in, and you know, and it kind of worked insofar as they were so remote that they weren't able to go into town every night like they did, you know, in years past. But both of these books say that, you know, well, KK's book says that it's, you know, it's a bit of a letdown. Halford, that was his first recording sober, and he mentions in his book that he listens to it and he feels like I can tell I'm sober. I can tell I'm, you know, solid and better than I ever was. Yeah, I don't know. He's really good on this record, but I can't find one that he's not really good on, you know, from the classic era. So I don't know. Maybe he's just proud of what he accomplished, and I don't know that he really sounds different than he did on Turbo or Defenders or whatever. But he's got a lot of high screams, and that's just absolutely fantastic. So I think over the years, you know, Turbo, a little bit of a detour. Ram It Down really didn't get them the reception they wanted. And then time goes by, and they come out with Painkiller. And this is, you know, Painkiller is them kind of getting up in age, but proving that they can do the heavy stuff that the younger bands, you know, I think, you know, by this time, you know, who's out there? Like you know, Skid Row's pretty heavy, but I think Pantera and those guys are, you know, here they come. And Painkiller, you know, pretty much showed that they're as heavy as they were on Defenders. So when you look back that direction, you know, going back, you know, Painkiller, the last thing before it was this. I don't think it's like two different worlds. Painkiller's better, but Ram It Down, I think it's pretty solid, and it's pretty heavy. And Ken's point about the upbeat stuff, I think he said it, the last thing I think he said in this section was, oh God, I don't know, where is it? Somewhere at the very end, he said that he told the band, "I'm never going to write another song with the word love in it. I don't want to hear that anymore." And so he's got, Love Zone, Love You to Death. I don't know. I don't know about that. His point is that the thing was just too upbeat for what he thought Judas Priest should be at the time. So that's about it. That's, really overlooked, even by myself, especially by myself, because I went many, many years without even listening to it. And then I just broke it out. I don't know, a few years ago I broke it out, and I had that really good experience on the treadmill where this thing's, oh man, this is just what I need, the first few songs of this record. And, just over time, you listen to it more, and it's not coping, it's not, rationalizing that, I want to like this record and it's really, so I'm going to keep listening to it until I like it. It's not that kind of thing at all. I throw it in there and ram it down in heavy metal back to back. Man, that's as good of a start, as anything in their catalog probably. But, I'm sure people are going to argue that, but that's fine. So, hey, ram it down. Don't hate the thing, man. It's not bad, and it's, the twists and turns of the industry and all that, what would you have done if you were there? These are the guys, they're the talent, and I think it's a heck of a good record, and give it another listen unless you've already, if you've already committed, I just hate that thing, then I'm not going to change anybody's mind, I'm sure. But I think it fits well in their catalog. Priest.